Alexander Novak, the Deputy Prime Minister of Russia, spoke about the much-awaited decision-making at the upcoming OPEC Plus conference scheduled for August and the expectation that it will decide to raise output significantly beyond the current pandemic-induced strategy of gradually releasing more barrels into a strengthening oil market. While it is still premature to discuss output decisions for August, Novak stated in his remarks on Thursday at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum that the current oil price is good enough for Russia, that oil prices reflect the balance of supply and demand, and that it is anticipated that seasonal oil demand will increase in the third quarter of the year. Wednesday saw Brent crude futures reach their highest price since September 2022 of $82. The global benchmark increased 1.6% from the day before, after rising over 3% the day before. While noting that excessively high oil prices may force users to switch to other energy sources, Novak confirmed that the upcoming OPEC Plus conference will address and settle oil supply for August and other months. He specifically attacked the IEA's current suggestions on that front and the roadmap that is being pushed, which might ultimately result in oil prices of $200 per barrel, should the world adopt the contentious roadmap of the International Energy Agency, which said that in order to attain net zero carbon emissions by 2050, investment in new areas would need to cease immediately. The price for oil will go to, what, $200? The cost of gas will soar, predicted Novak. Naturally, Qatar and Saudi Arabia agreed with this dismal prognosis, pledging to keep growing their oil and gas facilities and accusing climate activists of trying to deprive the industry of revenue. The Gulf statements are presented by Bloomberg on Thursday as follows. The euphoria surrounding the switch to clean energy is dangerous, Saad Sharita Al-Kabi, the energy minister of Qatar, stated on Thursday at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum in Russia. He emphasized further that you have big spikes in prices when you deny the business of further investments. Recall that in order to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050, the IEA's roadmap, which was outlined in the Paris Accords, calls for cutting emissions as much as feasible and then offsetting the difference with carbon removal schemes that are funded by carbon credits. But as we've previously explained, experts predict that the pandemic stimulus will spur even quicker rates of global growth, which means that energy demand will rise more swiftly as well. In spite of this, a number of scientists and economists predict that by 2050, worldwide energy demand will be about 8% lower than it is now due to advances in energy efficiency and the switch to renewable energy sources, even though the world economy would have grown by more than double. In light of this, the most apt statement was perhaps made recently by Saudi Arabia and St. Petersburg, when they rejected the La La Land scenario in a previous declaration. Saudi Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman has already dismissed the IEA roadmap, which would limit the average increase in global temperatures to 1.5 Celsius, calling it a La La Land scenario, he told Bloomberg. When asked on Thursday if oil is dead, he responded by saying the kingdom is increasing its production capacity. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak stated on Friday that his country was almost at meeting its oil production quota under the terms of the OPEC Plus agreement in May. It will surpass April in quality. Nearly 100%, Novak said to reporters outside of a Russian economic conference, as cited by the news agency TASS. Russia, Saudi Arabia's main ally in the OPEC Plus oil output accord, has consistently disregarded its quota under the agreement. In April, it was only expected to have attained 91% compliance. Based on official data cited by Interfax earlier this week, Russia produced 44.21 million tons of crude oil and condensate in May, up 11.2% year-over-year or about 10.45 million barrels per day, BPD. According to sources at OPEC, the organization had to remind the laggards in compliance with the deal to submit plans on how they will make up for pumping above their respective quotas in recent months, 1 week before the OPEC Plus meeting reaffirmed on Tuesday plans to ease the overall production cuts by 840,000 BPD in July. The OPEC Secretariat has not yet received plans from 7 of the 10 producers who have exceeded their limits regarding how they intend to make up for overproduction. Russia is thought to have been the OPEC Plus member that overproduced the most between May 1, 2023, and April 30, 2024, pumping at an average rate of 80,000 barrels per day beyond its quota for the year that ended in April, according to calculations by Energy Intelligence. Energy Intelligence's sources indicate that Russia considers compliance rates of 95 to 96% to be sufficient. Saudi Arabia, the other major OPEC Plus ally, has begun to acknowledge that Moscow's continued strong backing and participation in the production cut agreement may come at the cost of complete Russian non-compliance. Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak stated on Wednesday that Russia believes there is now a shortage of about 1 million barrels per day, BPD, on the world oil market. According to TASS, Novak told reporters in Russia, "There is a deficit on the market of around 1 million BPD and we need to consider how we can meet the growth in demand." According to Novak's statement from last week, the oil market was reasonably balanced, with supply slightly outpacing demand. The Deputy Prime Minister told reporters last week, "There is definitely a deficit on the market, which is why oil stocks from last year are drawing down toward the 5-year average." In accordance with the group's commitment to progressively restore more than 1 million barrels of oil per day to the market between May and July, Russia, OPEC's principal partner in the OPEC Plus output agreement, is increasing its oil production between May and July. During that time, Saudi Arabia will also undo its extra unilateral cut of 1 million barrels per day. Next week, the OPEC Plus alliance's ministers will gather for their monthly meeting to review the state of the market and compliance rates. According to Novak, OPEC Plus is considering the prospect of Iranian oil returning to the market in the near future. According to Russia's top oil policy ambassador, Iran has the ability to recover, and the alliance will need to determine how to balance supply and demand in light of Iran when and if sanctions are repealed. The United States and Iran's indirect discussions, as well as the talks with the nations involved in the Iranian nuclear deal, resumed in Vienna on Tuesday. The Joint Commission opened today the fifth and probably final round of the Vienna talks on restoration of the JCPOA, stated Mikhail Ulyanov, the head of the Russian delegation attending the negotiations, on Tuesday. According to Ulyanov, the participants expressed readiness to do their best to resolve the remaining outstanding issues and to successfully complete negotiations as soon as possible.